Today we are going to discuss about the biophysics chemical bonds. So myself Dr. Nazeer Basha, working as assistant professor in the Department of Zoology. The chemical bonds. Chemical bonds are two types. One is the primary chemical bonds and second one is the secondary chemical bonds. The primary chemical bonds are very strong bonds. Example, ionic bond, covalent bond and metallic bond. Secondary bonds are also known as very weak bonds. For example, hydrogen bond, van der Waals forces and dipole interactions. Primary bonds also known as strong bonds. The primary bonds involve the sharing or donating electrons between atoms to form a more stable electron configurations. For example, the covalent bond and the ionic bond. A covalent bond, the bond formed when two atoms share an electron or pair of electrons. So, the bond formed between two atoms is a sharing of one pair of electrons or two pair of electrons. The best example for the covalent bond is the hydrogen atoms. And second one is the ionic bond. What is ionic bond means? A bond formed when one atoms give up one or more electron from the different atoms. It is called as the ionic bond. Okay. And the secondary bond is also known as the weakest bond, but it's a biological important bond. Each and every molecules are formed with the help of secondary bond. For example, polymer, protein, DNA and water molecules, and each and every molecules in our biological system form in the secondary bond only. So the secondary bonds also a biological important one. Okay. The hydrogen bond is the best example for the secondary bonds. The hydrogen bond, positively charged hydrogen atom hydrogens of one molecule are attracted to the negative and another molecules. The second best example for the secondary bond is the van der Waals force. A van der Waals force, the relatively weak intramolecular force that holds the molecule together. So now we are going to discuss about the detail about the covalent bond. A covalent bond, a chemical bond which two atoms share a pair of electrons. So it is called as the covalent bonding. So the covalent bond formed between two non-metals, that means non-polar atoms. For example, covalent bond example is the hydrogen bond is the best example for a pair of electron. And a single bond is formed when one pair of the electron is shared between the two participating atom. Example, hydrochloric acid. The covalent double bond formed when two pair of electrons are shared between two participating atom. Example, carbon dioxide. The carbon and oxygen is sharing a two pair of electrons, so it is called as the double bond. When a hydrogen and HCl is sharing only one pair of electrons, so it is called as the single bond. In the case of nitrogen, a three pair of electrons shared between two nitrogen atoms, so it is called as the triple bond. Here we have to know what is the polar and non-polar atoms. So when electrons are shared equally, when electrons are shared equally between two atoms, it is called as the non-polar atoms. The electrons are not shared at equal distance, so it is called as the polar covalent bond. Okay. So now we discuss about the secondary bonds. So secondary bonds also called as very weak bonds. The secondary bonds are formed from the attraction force between the positive and negative charges. There is no transfer or sharing of electron involved in the secondary bonds. So what is the difference between primary bonds and the secondary bonds? Means when the primary bonds, the sharing of electron one atom to the another atom is the basic structure, structure in the primary bonds. The sharing of electron is primary bonds, but in secondary bonds there is no sharing of electron or between the atoms. Okay. The secondary bonds, they are bound together or joined together with the negative or positive charges. Okay. It can be easily broken. Why it is biologically important means it can be easily broken, so it is called as the very weak bonds. Okay. Weak bonds are biologically important because a molecule easily broken in the form of new molecules are transformed to the another molecule. Example, H bond and van der Waals forces. Now we are going to study about the hydrogen bond. Why hydrogen bond also called as the H bond? Because hydrogen involving here, so that way it is called as the H bond. Hydrogen bonding weaker from the chemical bonding. It is a type of polar covalent bonding between oxygen and the hydrogen, whereas the hydrogen develops a partial positive charges. Example, water molecule. The hydrogen bond formation between O atom and the H atom, the denoted line shows the formation of the formation of H bonds. Okay. Here electronegative atom accepted the electron O atom and the electropositive atom donating the electron. The hydrogen bond in the different molecule, for example, why it is hydrogen bonds are very important means in DNA particle, the double helical structure of DNA is due largely hydrogen bonding between its as well as the which link complementary strand to the other and enable replications. Okay. And protein also in the secondary bond structure, protein hydrogen bonds between the backbone, oxygen and the amino acid. And the cellulose, hydrogen bonds are important in the structure of the cellulose and the derivative polymers in the many different forms of nature, such as cotton and flax. Okay. So now we are going about the van der Waals forces. The van der Waals forces are very weak intramolecular forces that are dependent the distance between atoms or molecules. These forces arise from the interaction between unchanged atoms or molecules. For example, van der Waals forces can be arised from the fluctuations in the polarizations of two particulars that close to each other. In the group of forces that fall under the category weak chemical forces, the van der Waals forces are the weakest. They know that rapidly vanish when the distance between the interaction molecules increases. The strongest of the van der Waals force a typically range of 0.4 kilojoule per mole. So the van der Waals forces are very biologically important. The best example for the van der Waals forces are the lizard's legs, and the best example, best examples are protein, water molecule, polymers, and graphite sheets are the best example for the van der Waals forces. The van der Waals forces is the spontaneous forces. Van der Waals forces is the spontaneous forces in the intermolecular force that exists between the all molecules, regardless of they are polar or non-polar. They are very weak and compared to the other intermolecular forces and act as a neutral atoms and molecules. Basically, they attract the forces that hold the molecules near each other. Okay, the key to these forces that happens spontaneously. So, at any moment, regardless of the types of molecules, or dipole can appear and disappear. So, this is the best example. The gecko or a lizard's hair-like structure, which is fixed with the walls. So, we are know that the van der Waals forces are the very important. Okay. So, now we are going to final part, the conclusion. Covalent bonds are commonly found in the carbon-based organic molecules such as DNA and protein, and covalent bonds are also found in the inorganic molecule like hydrogen in carbon dioxide and water molecules. These triple bonds make difficult for the living system to break apart the nitrogen in order to the use of as the constitution of the protein and the DNA and oxygen. The formation of the water molecules provide an example for the covalent bonding. The hydrogen bond holds the complementary strands for the DNA together, and they are responsible for determining the three-dimensional structure of the folded protein, including enzymes and the antibodies. The van der Waals force play the fundamental role in the field of as diverse as the supramolecular chemistry, structural biological and polymerase science, nanotechnology, surface science, and condenser material of physics. So, here we already discussed about the primary and secondary chemicals bond. Both are biological important one because protein, DNA and RNA and each and every molecules are bound together or united together with the help of primary and the secondary bonds. Thank you.